Spring is sprung, and what we all want to do now is let the roof down and feel the wind in our hair. Now is the time for buying a ragtop. If you can't be tempted by even the most expensive convertible we've looked at, then maybe you're searching for a bit of chauffeur-driven luxury. We all know what happens in the spring, but in the summertime, a young man's fancy turns to convertibles. And so we've got a few to choose from, starting with the most outstanding two-seat sports car on the planet. In the very early 60s, Le Mans winner Carroll Shelby was forced by heart trouble to give up racing. So he decided to build his own car with one ambition: to blow Ferrari's doors off. His design was equally simple. Into the nimble AC Ace, he inserted a powerful American V8, and the result was an instant legend on the racetrack and on the streets of America. Ford wanted Cobra to take on Corvette on the racetrack and the street, and that's just what it did, especially in its most extreme form. Of around 1,000 Shelby Cobras built, 350 were given supercar status by the presence of a 427 cubic inch V8 engine, and these are still a benchmark by which performance can be judged. With 485 horsepower, 60 miles an hour came up in less than 4 seconds. 40 years later, Cobra retains its place in legend as the ultimate driving experience, although refinement isn't a word you'll hear being used very often by owners, any more than they talk about comfort, convenience, or even a weatherproof hood. Yet the European rivals that inspired Cobra and Corvette were fast as well as sophisticated. When Shelby had first taken his two-seat concept to GM but been turned down because Corvette was already in the works, this was the car that Chevrolet wanted to beat. The Jaguar XK120 was a brilliant example of the genius William Lyons brought to his designs, and it was matched by his engineers. Lyons graced the chassis with a body that harked back to the full-fendered roadsters of the 30s, and Harry Westlake topped off the Bailey, Haynes and Hassan Straight Six with a twin-cam alloy head that was and is a work of art. If brute power made the Cobra great, then the perfect poise and usable power did the same for the Jaguar. And these are classics of their era. But what are the classics of this one? What ought we to be driving this summer? At the time the Jaguar and Cobra were in production, Colin Chapman's Lotus car company was building a reputation for championship-winning races and agile sports cars, and today offers a back-to-your-roots two-seat racer in disguise that Chapman would be proud of. The modern Lotus Elise is cast in exactly the same mould as those early cars and instilled with the same purity. New designs, new materials, new techniques. Elise had the lot when it was originally launched and quickly joined the 7 as a Lotus-designed icon for a generation. And it's been with us long enough to have had its first official facelift. Most of the external differences are obvious, especially the new front lights. But a lot of changes may not be so evident. The squarer rear end has given it better aerodynamic balance, while panel thicknesses have been reduced to make it lighter than ever. Sill height has been lowered, though it still isn't easy for tall drivers to get in, because so much of the chassis is so visible and so present inside the car. It's hard to believe that a company can still be guided by the ethos and spirit of its founder 20 years after his death, but in many ways, and especially in this car, Colin Chapman lives on at Hethel. All else aside, he was an engineer, a genius maybe, but still an engineer, and like all of his kind, he recognised something that had been designed and built well and which worked well as a result, and there can be little doubt that he would have liked this car. And this one too, because it's basically the same, another collaboration between Opel and Lotus. But although the Speedster will be built at Lotus and uses a similar aluminium tub as its base, Both companies insist it's not just an Elise clone. The Speedster shares less than 10% of its components with the Elise, and its dimensions are different too. It's longer and wider, with a longer wheelbase, which accounts for the difference on the road. The Speedster drives like a Lotus and handles like a Lotus, but it rides like an Opel, thanks to stiffer springs and softer dampers than the Elise. It's got all the right ingredients for roadster fun: more than 2 litres in a lightweight frame, mid-engine layout, independent suspension, plus the comfort of a big-name maker's badge at the front, and the benefit of big badge pricing, slightly less than Elise. On the road, it has good mechanical grip, traction is excellent even in damp conditions, and braking performance, ABS assisted, is widely hailed as exceptional. Acceleration is good too, but not neck-snapping, and the chip-limited top speed is excellent as well, more than double the legal limit in most countries. Like its predecessors and contemporaries, the Speedster is aimed at the younger market, who would have bought MG Midgets or Austin Healey Sprites in years gone by. Those people just like the fun element, and as long as the rest of the package is there or thereabouts, they'll probably be happy with it just the way it is. The often criticised BMW Z3 is due for imminent replacement, so there may not be many reasons for selecting this as your choice of two-seater against its rivals. Despite legitimate complaints that the smaller engine versions are ludicrously expensive for something so underpowered, and equally accurate assessments that the chassis has too many rough edges to master the power of the bigger engines, the existing cars have sold well, even though they lack the sophistication of their soft-top rivals. But on the other hand, it is, after all, a BMW, and it looks the business inside and out. And with its new 3-litre straight-six, it drives like one at last. With a hunkier body, it looks the part too, and with 230 horsepower available from an engine specialising in ultra-smooth delivery of push from a seemingly bottomless pit of power, this car accelerates all the way to 150 miles an hour. But it's very determinedly rear-wheel drive, and fans of the rear drive experience will enjoy the ability to hang the back out in a politically incorrect 3-litre sort of way. But there's a little more to it than that. The chassis, often summed up by road testers as unsettled or just not man enough for the super power of the big 3-litre six-pack. BMW is about to offer a lower-priced alternative, however, this is the plan anyway, bringing BMW style and engineering to a market segment normally cost and price conscious and therefore deprived of this kind of design and build quality. The arrival of a baby BMW, or 1 Series, to fit beneath the compact in the marketplace is no surprise, but it created quite a bit of a shock in Geneva when it made its debut as a convertible that BMW promptly said will almost certainly never be available to buy. Created by Chris Bangle, responsible for the so-called flame styling of the 7 Series, CS1 is recognisably BMW thanks to lights and grille, and at the same time it's a long way from the conventional family face and shape that we know at the moment. Fitting in between Mini and 3 Series, it will utilise the 1.8 4-cylinder with BMW's Valvetronic system, helping it to 115 horsepower, and it will also feature the paddle-operated sequential gearbox. Now that BMW's ended its Rover excursion and settled its relationship with Mini, approval for the long-discussed Baby Beamer has finally been given, and it should be available in 2005, when it will be priced at Mini money, from just above Mini 1 to just above Cooper S. When Toyota established the Lexus brand all those years ago, the aim was to take on Mercedes and BMW head-on, and they succeeded straight off the bat. Lexus won an immediate and well-deserved reputation for excellence, and its halo has never slipped. But none of its products would have won any prizes for design originality, and despite the brave new words from Japan, the SC430 probably won't either. More than slightly reminiscent of the baby Mercedes sports car from the front, it only breaks fresh ground at the rear. And what we have here is one of those love it or hate it moments that happen in automobile design from time to time. They say rounded, I say fat. They say curvy, I say fat. They say bold, and I say fat. But it doesn't really matter all that much. The bottom line is that this is an all-American sports car. And as long as Americans think it looks European, then that'll do nicely. Especially while its equipment list is as fat as its rump, and the torque curve from that 4.3 litres is even fatter still. Performance comes out of the same basket, standstill to 100 clicks in 6 seconds from a fat V8. That's what it's all about. Inside too, it's aimed at the US market with the well-established Lexus quality in a full-top two-seater that's got everything going for it except the +2 bit in the brochure. Forget rear seat passengers unless none of your friends are taller than about 3'6". The rear seats are for shopping, and that's that. And if the expensive Lexus still isn't rich enough for your blood or your wallet, try the new Mercedes SL 500. It's not small, but it looks leaner, lower and lighter than the car it replaces, and it's not. It's bigger, both wider and longer, with a longer wheelbase. That means more room inside, head, leg and shoulder room, and to be fair, it is actually lighter than the soft top it replaces, though it's still no lightweight. The soft top's gone, replaced by an SLK-style hardtop that cycles in just 16 seconds, which is 9 seconds faster than the SLK. And better still, it takes up less luggage space. Inside, it might not look wildly different to current Mercedes, especially S-Class, but this is the most technologically advanced car Mercedes has so far offered. You won't be surprised by satellite navigation, nor perhaps by the availability of a regular TV, 8-speaker hi-fi and built-in telephone. And perhaps the idea that they're all voice-activated won't be much of a shock either. The electronic key triggers not just the remote locking system, but also tells the car who you are and fires up its memory for mirror position, steering wheel and seat before the drivers open the door. And the 10 parking sensors around the body help you get in and out of your parking spot. The wipers know when it's raining, lights know when it's dark, tyres know how much air is in them, Sensortronic, braking by wire, which is like permanent ABS even before a wheel locks. And it abolishes the ABS pulses normally felt on the sole of your shoe. Some drivers become alarmed by these and actually release brake pedal pressure with potentially catastrophic results. So the most advanced Mercedes ever goes a long way to looking like the best one too, but then at this price, it really wants to be. And if even the big Mercedes hasn't stretched your taste for luxury or your wallet, stand by to alert the bank manager about this one. It costs money. First seen in Geneva this year, the Maybach is big, expensive and about as over the top as a car can be, a Cadillac Eldorado for the new millennium. Have a careful look at this car and try to ignore the fact that the manufacturer's starting price is more than £250,000 and there's almost no limit to what you can spend on top of that. Now ask yourself a simple question. Would you buy anything this ugly if the price was only £250? No, nor me. And between us, I think we have identified the only real stumbling block to sales success for Mercedes and its brand new brand Maybach, which isn't actually that new. Carl Maybach was an engineering partner of Gottlieb Daimler in the very early years of the motor industry and built his first car under his own name in 1921. More expensive than Mercedes from the start, the cars were engineering marvels as well. Showpieces for their creators' mechanical genius, especially the engines and the gearboxes. As the company grew, Maybach engines powered aircraft and railway locomotives, as well as trucks and lorries. But the cars continued to find favour among wealthy Germans who disdained Mercedes but were too patriotic to choose a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley. Ironically, Maybach merged with Mercedes-Benz in 1960, principally as a manufacturer of large diesel engines, and the name was lost after a little more than 2,000 of these luxurious cars had been made, of which less than 200 still survive. And then in 1998 came the news that Mercedes had decided to resurrect the brand name and use it for an ultra-luxurious saloon car to be positioned above the S-Class. And the reason Mercedes chose to do this is simple enough and at the same time quite clever. Some while ago, market researchers identified the existence of a section of the population which the banking industry describes as HINWIs, high net worth individuals, which is a posh way of saying rich, very rich. People who can write cheques that end with 6 zeros and don't bounce. People who will happily write such cheques in pursuit of leisure activities, especially when they're buying cars. At this level, we're talking about very special cars, the kind that are either so individual and so much fun that rich enthusiasts love owning them, or cars which are so expensive that rich people like you to know that they can afford one and you can't. There are around 10,000 of these people in the world today, and there are likely to be another 5,000 more of them in 10 years' time. What are they all going to drive? At present, the choices are limited, far too limited for people with unlimited resources. And though Mercedes are top of the list with the S-Class and the Stretch S, the very fact of their success and the 100,000 units that are built each year almost preclude the car from being the plaything of the very rich for very much longer. BMW and Volkswagen have both recognised this and taken steps to provide answers in their purchases of Rolls-Royce and Bentley respectively. Both have debut models under German ownership due out soon. Mercedes wanted a name with a similar amount of prestige and found they already owned Maybach. The fact that they had to think about it means we can all be forgiven for not knowing it either, and it means that there was a certain amount of marketing and PR work to be done in order that we could all appreciate the values of a brand enough to think a new model would be worth £250,000. Thus began a marketing exercise which has already swallowed several £1,000,000 and will gulp down a few more over the next 10 years, by which time Mercedes predicts Maybach will be in profit after selling around 100 cars each year. Obviously, buyers will get quite a lot for their money, including all the usual handmade quality, the very best leather, nice shiny wood, or granite if they prefer. Stainless steel, anything they like, in fact. Every one of the cars built at the new Sindelfingen plant will absorb 53 days of craftsmanship before it is complete. And the luxury treatment doesn't end when the car is delivered. Every buyer will have a personal liaison manager appointed from the moment he or she expresses serious interest. And once the deposit, say €50,000, has been paid, that manager will be on call 24/7 to discuss the subtle nuances of this particular shade of leather or the grain of an individual maple tree. And buyers will be encouraged to make their car as perfect as possible. That even means that you can have airline-style rear seats if you wish. Ultimate reclining luxury at the press of a button. Well, several buttons to be fair. But presumably you'll feel right at home because a person with your busy but expensive lifestyle spends half their life fast asleep in the club seats on long-haul flights to exotic destinations. And you'll be surrounded by the usual lap of luxury stuff, of course. knee-deep in TV screens and satellite navigation. Plus, you'll have no less than 3 built-in telephones. One of those connects you directly to your personal liaison manager. Remember him? Because his job does not end on the day you take delivery of your new car. It lasts for as long as you keep the car. And if you need anything, you can call him. And that's anything as in anything. If you need a seat in that top Paris restaurant, tickets for the Monaco Grand Prix, you just call and Maybach will do their best to deliver. Unsurprisingly, there is already a 5-month waiting list for a new Maybach, and though the company says that potential owners were easier to find than potential Golf owners, a large number are expected to be corporate buyers who will use the car to chauffeur visiting clients around rather than for individual use. And because of what that says about you and the company you keep, the PR budget continues to look like the national debt of a small African country. In the words of one anonymous buyer, "You convinced me that this car is good enough for me. Now you have to show all the people who can't afford it that it's good enough for me, or they won't be impressed." That's the top line and the bottom one, and that's really what it's all about.